Oh, warning everyone, the following video is not like my normal videos. This is actually going to be a semi-review slash show off of my Imperator Rome footage. If you want a more funnier impression slash first look at Imperator Rome, make sure to tell me, and the second Imperator Rome video I will be making will definitely be showcasing that in the rather ridiculous multiplayer game that we had at the event. Anyway, sit back, relax, enjoy what I have to show off of Imperator Rome, and make sure to grab a cup of tea. Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Spiffing Brit, and today I have a very special video for you. Those lovely gentlemen over at Paradox Interactive decided to ship me out alongside a load of other, well, I suppose a handful of other YouTubers and a large amount of print media to playtest their game in the gorgeous British city of Bath. It was absolutely lovely and a great experience, but alas, this is a video about reviewing the game, not the experience. Experience 100 out of 100. Would endlessly have that experience again. But let's talk about the game. This is probably the part where I need to put up some disclaimers. First disclaimer is that I can only show you 30 minutes of gameplay footage, spread out however much I like, so I'll be doing this in 2 videos, and also that there was actually no limitations really as to what we could record, other than things that quite simply hadn't been finished yet and the developers didn't want to show off. We were basically allowed to experience everything the game had in its current state. Naturally, of course, this is still one major work in progress. This game doesn't even have a release date yet, meaning we won't be seeing it anywhere near to the market for quite a while yet. And whilst many of you might be sat there thinking, my god, I really love that feature, or oh god, they really need to fix that, then I really do need to tell you that this game's not finished yet. Trust me, it honestly isn't. The AI, it's operating, it's working, but from speaking to the devs, they definitely want to make it more flamboyant. They want to make it more intelligent rather than just, this is what the player's doing, this is my hard-coded reaction to it. And I think if they can add that in, whoa, we are in for one very special Paradox game. Now, if you're sat there with a pre-decided judgment on the game as to whether you'll like it or not, I simply request that you need to put down all of your pitchforks and put down all of your nostalgia goggles as well, as this is going to be, hopefully, a very unbiased review where we take into all sides. But for that, come on, just do one great big... There we go, come on. Breathe that all out. Now, there we go. We're neutral. We can begin. So, what is Imperator? Well, at the end of the day, it is the amalgamation of all that makes Paradox good and proper in my eyes. It is the brainchild of Johan, who quite simply has created some absolutely incredible and phenomenal grand strategy games. So this almost feels like his peak. This is grand strategy. Everything about this game is grand strategy, and if you have sat down and gone, you know what, I really like Total War, but it's really missing this element here, then boom, what you're looking for is grand strategy. This game serves it to you. I would say this game is a perfect blend between EU4, CK2, Hearts of Iron 4, and, most importantly, Victoria 2. I know, when this game was getting teased, everyone was going, maybe it's Victoria free! Alas, this is not Victoria free, but I can tell you, I'm pretty damn happy with it as a replacement. This game has taken the character development system and the character interaction system from CK2, mixed it with the nation building elements of EU4, and added in some combat from Hearts of Iron 4. If anything, it's added in the combat from Hearts of Iron 4 and made it even greater in detail. And what I mean by that is there's not more numbers flying around on screen, there's just more strategy. It's no longer a case of you're just throwing your men and your perfect templates against other perfect templates. It's that you're sending thousands of men into battlefields and seeing what they can pull off, and whether your commander's good or not is actually a really important thing. It's no longer, oh, my commander has a number 1, their commander has a number 2, consequently I will lose. Traits are playing a big role in this, because your commanders aren't just a 2-dimensional person. You don't just put them down on the battlefield and they'll go off and do your every whim. I put a commander down on a battlefield, got him to siege a city. What did he do after sieging the city? He bloody burnt the thing to the ground. He sacked everything inside it. What's the issue with that? Well, it makes him more popular. It also gives him loads more money. He actually killed so many people, the entire region became uninhabitable for quite a while. And because he had all this money and he was really popular with his troops, what do you think he then went on to do? That's right, he tried to cause a bloody civil war. It's these kinds of character interactions that really guarantee that you're going to have a great and constantly changing time with Imperator. It's not going to be a case that every single campaign is the same as the last, and for me personally as a Paradox player, that is the most important thing. EU4 is a game I can go back to time and time again because there's so much going on and so much that can change from game to game. You just don't get that with any other grand strategy game, in my opinion. Now I'm getting the feeling it's probably about time I should show you some of this glorious gameplay footage I have. And so for the purposes of this video, I will be showing you a little bit of a campaign that I had as the mighty tribe of Boy. These guys are situated in northern Italy. They start off, well, in quite a weak little state. Tribes are relatively similar to the uncivilized nations of Victoria 2 in that whilst they can progress, they progress at a slightly slower rate until they can reform themselves up to the kind of more centralized standards of Rome. But that doesn't mean they're weak in comparison to Rome. By God, no. These guys know how to command armies. They can do it very well. Whilst they might not be very good at spanning out and taking an entire empire, whilst they haven't got any reforms going, they can most definitely stand up to any foe on the field of battle. And that is why I love the tribe of Boy. As Boy, we start out with 6,000 men, but our randomized ruler has, he's got a lot of skill behind him. He is incredible. He is a level 9 commander. This actually makes him pretty damn good at the game. Now, to the south of Boy, we have the nation of Sironia. They're actually really quite impressive. They have some nice tasty land, and guess what? It's of our culture group, which means taking it will face very few, well, negatives for just occupying their land. And I wouldn't really say enslaving, I'd more say borrowing their people. Here at the moment you can see that I'm picking the recommended kind of formation that my men are going to be positioned in. This is a lovely feature in the game. Basically it's me saying that if possible I would like light infantry to be in the front lines, archers to be in the middle, and then our flanking unit to be light cavalry. Now I don't actually have any light cavalry, so the game's just going to default and say that the chariots are going to be flanking. Now chariots aren't necessarily great at flanking, but you know, they'll get the job done. All units have a slight rock, paper, scissors kind of blend going on, with, say, for example, archers being very good against light infantry, and so on and so forth. Anyway, this is a little bit on into the future of the campaign. I've taken out Successor, and we are currently preparing for a war against Silesia. I know, very spicy. I've expanded myself quite a lot in the form of northern Italy and built up a nice little alliance web. However, you might notice to my south the Romans are actually now bordering me. I know, very spooky. Anyway, this is one of the fun things you can do. It's called basically an omen. You can do these every once in a while. They last for quite a long time, and you basically pick the one which you think is best for the situation. Now, we are about to go to war, so it's probably a good idea to grab something that increases manpower, or grab something which would, say, increase our discipline. But alas, no, I've gone for aggressive expansion decay because I've taken over a lot of land, and the last thing I want is my surrounding neighbours to get slightly annoyed at me. Now, naturally, it's a good idea to build up a large amount of men before you go to war, and I've noticed that generally in the forces we're facing, we're seeing a large amount of archers and light infantry, meaning I want to increase the amount of archers I have, and if possible I could really do with some heavy cavalry. But of course, to build heavy cavalry I actually need some special goods. To get heavy cavalry and the like, you need trade goods, and trade goods can either be found from either holding the land which actually produces it, or instead, and this is my much more preferred option, trading for it from a much larger power. And I absolutely love this feature. It means that if you are, say, playing as the tribe of Boy, and somehow miraculously you end up getting brilliant relations with Carthage. Okay, it's quite unlikely historically speaking, but if you were to, and you could then convince Carthage to trade you some elephants. Now, what will these elephants do? Well, it allows you to recruit and build elephants. Yes, war elephants. It's honestly incredible. Oh my gosh. The fact that the kind of troops you can build is not region locked, it's actually just, well, it's just dependent on what you can trade into the province you actually want to build in. It's amazing. I love it. I am so happy with that as a feature. Also, you might notice that there's, of course, supply in the game. Now, supply is weighted on various things like your nation, how good it is, but also how many people are living in the province. Now, you can move population around. And so what I've done, just before declaring this war, is I've put my army on the border. Now, I wanted to build up a larger army, so I needed more supply in the region so that my men wouldn't get attrition whilst they're sat waiting there. So I moved slaves around. Now, you can move around any citizen of your empire, be it freemen, tribesmen, or citizens or slaves, but moving slaves is ridiculously cheap. It costs only 5 influence at the moment. Of course, this could all change, but it means that when you're wanting to prepare for a front line and you want to solve any attrition problems, just migrate a horde of slaves to the front line to pad out the supply. Also, the mercenary system in this game is a little bit different. You might notice that there's a 17k kind of sat to the right at the moment on screen. Well, instead of mercenaries just being purchased in a land, mercenaries are actually collected from the map, and you can bring them around. Oh, actually, yeah, this is our first battle. As you can see, we are incredible. Yeah, our general is just honestly astounding, and the nation that I've created, I've certainly specialized it into being very good on the front lines. Now, what I've just done there is switched around the general, and that's for good reason. The previous general, as you might notice, there's a few hands on the units. That means that those units are, instead of being loyal to the nation, they're loyal to a particular general. Oh, also, just did a siege there, and because I'm the ruler, I get to decide what happens. If my general had been in control there, the general would have decided how much he'd like to siege the province. Meaning, yes guys, meaning he could have burnt the entire thing to the ground. Hence why I kind of prefer to be in control. Oh my gosh, heretics. Who can believe it? Anyway, the sieging is very similar to most Paradox games. You kind of get the picture. You sit on a province and occupy it. Sieging of castles is much more fun. You can do raiding, and raiding, it's not like EU4 where it's basically suicide. In this game, raiding, it's actually a viable option, and it's not an overpowered option. It is at your detriment, and because manpower is quite valuable in this game, it's actually quite a good little balance of resources. I really have enjoyed my time raiding. Raiding is a great thing if you know you're going into a little small war and you can just jump on the AI. However, raiding against actual really big professional large wars is probably not the best idea. Anyway, this war is basically complete. I've grabbed everything I wanted to. I only wanted most of these border provinces, and I've just noticed that there's a horde of barbarians that have just occupied a piece of my land, which is a pain because it means I need to send my army home to deal with that. Anyway, we've just finished our little war there. That was very simple for us, and of course just polished off those barbarians. And when we've polished off those barbarians, because they sacked and looted our town, they stole 2 people, if you can believe it, and we managed to rescue one of them. Sadly, one of them died. Anyway, I've just fabricated a claim on Eritrea, a lovely little place in northern Italy, quite famously a bit of a rival to Rome. Now, up here is basically the invention screen. You get to just pick inventions. They're kind of randomly selected, although it's quite weighted as to you'll get some early on and some later on from what I can see. But inventions are a nice way of specializing your nation. It means that if you wanted to really focus on making a ridiculous amount of money, you can, and you'll be benefited for it. Because making a lot of money doesn't mean you're going to be terrible at war. It just means you're going to have to rely on mercenaries. Relying on mercenaries can be good. It can also be a bit negative, because if you want to buy out all of the mercenaries in a region, it's probably a good idea. If you're planning to go to war with a rich nation that doesn't have a large army, but you know it's going to buy mercenaries, buy the mercenaries before it does. Otherwise you're going to have a bit of a chaotic war on your hand. At the moment I'm training up a second army. As you can see, I don't have anywhere that allows me to produce heavy infantry, but basically everywhere can produce archers and light infantry. They can be built basically anywhere. It's good stuff. Now to the south you can see we have Syracuse. Oh, can I just say for a moment, this map is gorgeous. Honestly, it is completely beautiful. The ocean changes as well, so in the south on Egypt you have really golden shores, but in the north the sand is a bit darker, it looks a bit trashier. You know, it's the UK, you're not going to expect golden shores, but when you're just looking at the nice the summer shores of Rome and Egypt, it is an incredible sight to behold. This has to be the single greatest looking Paradox game I've seen. It's not even finished yet. It looks this good and it's not even done. Now I also understand that there's going to be a lot of questions around this game, as well as the entire multiplayer situation, and so the other half of my Imperator Rome footage is going to be entirely dedicated to the footage I got from my multiplayer game against even the lead developer of this game, Johan himself. I was playing alongside Enter Elysium and Conflict Nerd. It was one hell of an incredible multiplayer, so yes, that will be my next video. But if you have a question surrounding it, please do give this video a like so I know that you actually do want to see the next video, and also in the comment section down below, if you have a question or concern about this game that you'd like to see addressed, please do tell me and I will make sure to try and answer it to the best of my ability from my experience in the next video. Honestly, if you feel a little bit concerned, even if it's just a small, minor thing in the back of your mind that you are like, oh gosh, no, this could be make or break for me, then don't worry, please do tell me. Yep, with a second army, we now need a second general, but of course, you can now pick a general, maybe with a slightly good trait, but alas, none really exists, so I'll just go for the higher number one, because why not? Now here we go, war with Eritrea. As we can see, they have a few alliances going on, but honestly, nothing that I feel I really need to worry myself about. So I've called in my ally from the left there, as you can see, Sironia. They're a lovely nation, they've got a lot of men behind them, and I think, you know, it'll be great. What could possibly go wrong with this war? I can't see anything going wrong. We've got my king leading one army, another army being led by a pretty decent guy as well. So it's war. Now, wars are a great way of showing off your power, but also they have a slight issue. Yeah, there's a lot of battles, and if you start to lose battles, you might suddenly find yourself on a retreating side, and like previous Paradox games, this game has stack wiping. If you've trained up a glorious army with some brilliant men, maybe a brilliant general, and they get wiped out, guess what? They get wiped out for good, and it is devastating. It really is. Also, if you send out your best generals into war, there's a chance that if they lose a battle, they might not come back. Oh my goodness, and here we have it. The Eritrean army is trying to jump in and attack my 16,000 men. Now, before they had 20,000 men, now they've just gone up to 33,000 men. This is leaving it very close for my army, and in fact my army isn't even going to be able to get there in time. Yeah. That is a loss, and because the first army was just defeated, the reinforcing second army is going to jump in against 31,000 men. Yeah, that's not going to be a possible win, no matter how many attempts you have at a good roll. Also, I did just assassinate the enemy general there, and I'll try and assassinate this one too. We have a really high chance at the moment, but I think that's it's a work in progress thing, but also just with how prominent their commander was. So yes, this is probably one of my favourite strategies, which is that if you feel you're not necessarily going to win a battle, just kill off the enemy commanders until there's absolutely no commander left. The commander system in this game is effectively designed to nerf necessarily massive empires, or just like lots and lots of little armies with loads and loads of generals. The reason for that is because each general needs to be paid a wage. It's nothing ridiculous, but it is an amount of money, meaning if I were to have loads and loads of armies with lots of little generals, they'd need to be paid. However, if I choose to just not have a general at all, then all of your soldiers will have a minus 25% to their morale. They will always be only able to achieve 3/4 of their maximum morale. And that's actually a real big deal, because I mean morale is kind of It's what keeps you in the battle. Sure, being able to deal damage is great and it wears down manpower, but morale is what allows your men to stick around in a bit of a conflict and make sure that your reinforcements arrive. Morale in this game is also very important. It doesn't regen anywhere near as fast as other Paradox games, which is good. It means that as soon as your men lose the kind of first war eagerness and their ability to drive and get some very easy and stunning victories, it suddenly becomes a big issue to actually regain that momentum and keep your men pushing through. Oh, and here we have it, another huge battle, but this time the numbers are on our side, although it is getting very close. I remember certainly at this point E was now looking over my PC as we were both trying to see if the mighty nation of Boy could clinch this victory. It is, God, it's one hell of a fight. As you can also see, there's a picture of a wolf and a rhino on the battle screen. These are basically the tactics that our generals have chosen before we go into the battle. If you can work out the tactic that the enemy general is using, then you can try and use a counter tactic. For example, if they're going for a very rapid, all-out frontal assault, they're going to have some great modifiers, but if you try and counter it with, I don't know, a flanking strategy, then you're probably going to do a lot better against them. Or, well, comparatively a lot better against them. However, generals can't suddenly change their strategies on the fly. It does cost a slight amount of points. Meaning, if you want to be super flexible, you got to be willing to burn some of that military power you've got saved up. Now, I am aware that the kind of monarch point situation is a bit of a contention because you can convert monarch points to money and then money to monarch points. Of course, there's a cutoff so that you can't do it at a 1-to-1 exchange ratio, but I know that it's gonna make a lot of people scared that this is just gonna be a monarch point converting game. Don't worry, it's not. It really isn't. Anyway, it's a second attempt at the Boy game. For me personally, I think it's a great idea because I often found myself in EU4 in situations where I had a massive stockpile of, say, diplomatic power, but absolutely nothing to spend it on. You might say roll a ruler who's absolutely incredible at his military power, yet when you just want him to declare a war or whatever, you haven't got any of the admin power you need to actually back any of his claims up or whatever. So in this game, I really like what they've done with the fact that you can actually convert monarch power into money, but also money into monarch power. It also means if you're running, say, a smaller trade nation, you can actually play a game where you go tall instead of wide. You don't necessarily want to be the Mongol hordes and take over most of the entire known world. You might want to spend some time developing up your nation and going tall, making lots of money, spending that money and using that to develop yourselves instead of just going really wide out, getting as many people in your empire as possible. Another really cool feature about this game is the aggressive expansion element. There's no longer a situation where overextension is going to absolutely cripple your internal situation. Aggressive expansion, whilst it does hurt the opinions other nations have of you, at the moment there's no coalition system in place. However, it does mean that your enemies are more likely to ally with enemies you might be at war with and jump in on the war, or that they might be more likely to just attack you. Aggressive expansion in this game, though, works in an even better way. In my personal opinion. If you are at war with someone and you suddenly expand a huge amount of land, the people of your culture group don't care. If you have expanded into your culture group, they don't really care. They love it. It's fine. For them, it's just another, say, Germanic ruler leading over them. They're fine with it. The issue is when you go beyond your culture group. Say I was playing the tribe of Boy and I had somehow managed to peacefully occupy all of Rome and it was going great. If I were to then rapidly expand, it doesn't matter what I expanded into, my Germanic citizens would be having a great time, but the citizens that I had who were Roman, they're not going to be feeling too great about it, meaning that your empire can tear itself apart from within, but it's done so via rapid expansion and it won't ever be your culture group. I think personally that sits really well with me because it just didn't really make sense that the English people would be really grumpy about expanding into more English people or expanding into France. I mean, surely we'd love it. The pop growth in this game is also dynamic, although you can get pops from events and the like and try and speed it up. It is a nice little fluid thing, meaning it's not a case of EU4 where you just insert monarch points to improve empire. You actually do have to worry about how your people are going to be growing. If you want to say make sure your capital is growing better, then you need to try and improve relations with empires that produce a large amount of grain and trade it into your capital. Now, trading might seem like a really complicated mechanic, but it's actually really easy. It's literally just 3 clicks of a button, and after you've kind of nailed down what trade goods are good for which situation, then you're sorted. For example, there's a few trade goods which will make sure that all of your units have better starting experience. Starting experience is important, and so is unit experience, because it means your units won't be taking as much damage. They won't need to be getting restocked every time they go into war. It's great. There's also trade goods which allow you to say, of course, build infantry. There's trade goods which can increase happiness. There's trade goods which can increase a certain specialization of research. Oh my goodness. It's brilliant what you can do with these trade goods. But of course, it's only provincial. If you want to trade in a load of wheat and grain, it's only going to be in one province, and the more grain you trade in, it slowly stacks up and stacks up, the faster, say, your population is going to be growing from said grain. And for me, that one feature of rapid population growth via either micromanagement, but also just you can leave it by itself and it's going to grow over time, is perfect. It means that you don't have to spend time when you're at war making sure that your empire is still growing from within, because if you've set up that grain trade route before war and you've kind of set up your little marketplaces, getting some slave production going, it's going to stay that way whilst you're at war. Although the exception is, of course, if a load of boats rock up to your port, you might find that your supply situation has suddenly changed. Now, for a game that isn't even finished yet, I have to say that Imperator Rome, for me, scratches the perfect itch of being a vastly improved version of EU4. Also, oh my god, I just need to say this. I saw the modding side of this game. The developers showed it off to us, and can I just say the modding situation for this game is incredible. When the developers say this is going to be the easiest to mod and the most moddable Paradox game ever, they weren't joking. They really weren't. Like, us YouTubers with absolutely zero modding skills at all, we were able to just hop into the game and make loads of little silly edits. Of course, with zero experience, it's good fun. Like, massively change the height level of the water, flood the world, move provinces around, graphically change everything, paint the map in sand if we wanted to. It's great what you can do with this game. Honestly, I can't wait to see what the community can do. For me, personally, what's kept Hoi4 going for so long, even though it's been through kind of a bit of a rough development cycle, is the fact that the Hoi4 community has created some absolutely phenomenal mods to keep the game going. You've got modern day mods, you've got Fallout 4 mods, you've got total conversions. This game feels like there's going to be a full total conversion mod in probably the first week. I honestly can see you guys out there doing it absolutely no problem. So what do I give this game? Well, for me personally, the only thing that irritated me at the moment was the way the AI was behaving, but honestly, it was actually still a really fun experience to play against. It wasn't quite up to the standards of the AI I was used to in, say, Hoi4 or EU4, but it is actually, in my eyes, even better than the AI of Total War. So if you've enjoyed playing Rome 1, I'd actually say this is a better representation of Rome 1 than Rome 2 Total War ever will be. Sure, it hasn't got the in-depth actual graphical map battles that the Total War franchise does, but for me this is a Rome 1 killer and a Rome 2 killer. Rome 2 will be dead after this game. My one fear is whether EU4 will survive this game, because this does everything EU4 does, just even better. Like, this is like the base game of this, completely unfinished as it is, feels to me better than EU4 with all the DLC it currently has. I am blown away by it. I could sit down and play this game in its completely unfinished state for at least another 200 hours or so. I absolutely loved my experience. Does that mean I recommend buying this game? No, it does not. For goodness sake, never pre-order games. That's my opinion. Of course, what I would recommend though is keeping tabs on this. This is definitely a game to watch out for. Whilst I don't think it's going to be getting released for another, say, 4 months, maybe 5 months, heck, it could even be another 9 months, maybe even a year. I certainly do recommend not letting hype overflow you on this one, but make sure to definitely keep posted on its development cycle. Paradox is very good at putting up weekly dev diaries, and there's several YouTubers out there who make sure to cover them, so keep an eye on them because they're actually really good. Of course, you'll know when Imperator is released because I'm going to be making an absolute metric ton of these videos. In fact, of course, we've got the next Imperator video coming up soon, depending on you guys. If you want to see some glorious battles between YouTubers and developers, then make sure to give the video a like. I'm going to say, when we hit 3,000 likes on this video, I will drop this multiplayer game, because I mean, come on, who wouldn't want to see a couple of YouTubers stand up to the might of Johan and his cheesy tactics? Anyway, if you've enjoyed this video, please do make sure to tell me. We're hoping to certainly hit 100,000 subscribers before Christmas, and thanks to all of you, it looks like we might actually do it. But if you want to help out, be that final push and make sure you hit the subscribe button. Anyway, I will see all of you in the next one. It has been an absolute pleasure.